Thank you for joining us today for another exclusive interview sponsored by Immovet. Help your horses reach their maximum potential with Immovet's line of natural homeopathic products. I'm your host today, Aurelian Jermia. So today we are joined by Ian McKinlay, an expert in equine hoof care, who will explore the daily life of a farrier, from common hoof issues in racehorses to the crucial role of nutrition and the high-stake pressure of major events like the Saudi Cup and Dubai World Cup. We'll delve into the importance of teamwork with trainers and veterinarians, safety precautions with high-strung racehorses, and the evolving advancement in hoof care. Stay tuned for an insightful conversation with a skilled professional dedicated to maintaining the health and performance of race horses. So first of all, great to have you here. How did you
I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry, I was just saying great to have you here on the call.
Okay. Well, thank you. My honor. All right.
So, how did you get involved, first of all, in farriery?
It's interesting. I'm out of Canada, grew up in Canada, and as a kid, I used to be with my dad who trained in standardbred racehorses.
Okay.
And one of the common issues with standardbreds is quarter cracks because the tracks are so hard. So I used to help my dad. He came up with the technique of using the wires. As far as he'd never seen it before, that's the approach he took, was lacing them. And so in the beginning, I was actually training standardbreds. I didn't do any shoeing then, but I had a trainer's license because we'd race at a few of the local tracks around us. And I guess I got out of college and I went over to Detroit just to do quarter cracks because they are everywhere in that industry. Quarter cracks, wall separations. It's like an abscess that comes out of a sole. White line disease with seedy toe is what, it's just a fungus. That's the only thing I worked on. And there weren't really any guys that did it that much. We had an excellent glue that we used. We had a dentist, very good friend of my father, and he just looked around, found a nice structural adhesive. Wouldn't work by itself, which will lead down this road a little farther. If you didn't lace the cracks, it'd end up re-cracking. So you had to lace them. And so I went to Detroit, and then I just came to New York to see the Meadowlands. Some guy flew me down to work on one that I'd worked on in Detroit because the guy's patch totally different in New York. So I came down to the New York, New Jersey area, and at that point, it was the pinnacle of racing in the standardbred world. I had never even laid eyes on it. Well, I'd seen thoroughbreds, but never been around them. That was probably 5-6 years later that I started working on thoroughbreds. I never thought they'd have problems because the track is so soft. There's no concussion. But the hoof is, I would venture to say, it's probably the worst hoofed equine, the thoroughbred racehorse, probably just through breeding and whatnot. But now the standardbreds are catching up through, their breeding is so tight now. The feet have changed in the last 20-30 years.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, now I'm in New York. When I got to the Meadowlands, one of the vets was watching me patch it, and like, it's a totally new technique for him. And he said, well, you come down here, I'll get you all the work you can handle. And he wasn't kidding. And then at the carbon copy, when I came to the thoroughbreds, it was jaw-dropping for me because the walls were so thin. Like I said, I didn't think they'd have problems because the track is so deep. You just don't have that concussion. But they have all kinds of them.
Oh my goodness.
So now I'm down here since probably 1981.
Oh, wow. More than
long.
That's
Yeah,
quite a bit of time.
long time.
That is interesting.
Good. Yeah, I was just a kid when it started. It was fun.
Wow. Excellent. Could you walk us a little bit through a typical day in your life? I guess probably a lot of long hours on the road, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Well, I ended up, it's got a lot more hectic now because I moved down to Maryland. They have my daughter got married. My wife just wanted to be a little closer. So we moved down there, but the vast majority of my clients are in New York, so it's about 2.5 hours. So now I'm on the road all the time.
Oh my goodness.
I usually my usual day, because Maryland has 3 or 4 tracks there between Maryland, Delaware, then New Jersey has all the farms. So these are all en route getting to Belmont. So I'd probably get up around 5:30, get it on the road and just, you just start. And what happens, every blacksmith, they'll bring out another horse, especially in the lameness world. I really don't do traditional shoeing at all. I just do lameness work,
Okay. Wow.
sore-footed horses. Now I'll end up, you'll get them sound by gluing on shoes, so I'll be resetting shoes. But generally, it's mostly lameness stuff,
That's
and they're long days, but very gratifying for sure.
fun, I'm sure. Long hours
So
on the road, but
anyway, that's
I'm sure you're getting some
oh,
enjoyment
driving.
also out of it.
Yes, it's the beauty of YouTube. You can get educated in your car.
That's true.
You start down one of them rabbit holes, and you look around, you listen to enough interviews, you'll know who's, fabricating and who's telling the truth.
That's true.
And it's the same in every industry. Doesn't matter. Even in the horse industry, there are guys that are imposters and there are guys that are the real deal. And
True.
they get sorted out quickly.
So, Ian, what are the most common hoof issues you normally encounter in racehorses?
Yeah, most of it would be palm or heel pain, back
Okay.
third of the foot, and that's due to concussion. The standardbreds definitely, because the track, it's the stone dust, which it's might as well be asphalt if it rains, because they'll screen it down so hard. So going over those kind of tracks at a high speed, and what you'll end up with an abscess in the sole, which will migrate up the wall and the whole corner will come out. And that's in the thoroughbred world. I rarely saw those when I first started, but now they've changed all the tracks over here and they put in a stone dust base. So when the track gets worn out, because there's so much traffic like here at Belmont, they have a sand surface. They have so many horses go over it, the sand will actually break down and get powdery. So they'll go right through it. If it's real dry in the wintertime, they can't put water on the track. So they'll go right straight to the bottom. And then you end up with solar abscesses. When I first started, they never had that type of base, and I never saw those types of injuries. Now that you see them all the time.
So injuries are
But
kind of evolving according to what we are doing in a way.
yeah, yeah.
That's good.
So it's safer a stone dust base because it's so level. You don't get holes in the base, and they always felt a horse would step in a hole, is what the term they would say. I could see that. I wish they'd put the stone dust down and then put like a clay, like 2 or 3 inches of clay on top of that. They actually did that down in Maryland because they were having a lot of breakdowns, because they have a very weird track. It was similar to stone dust, maybe even a little harder. But when they brought in the old track guy, he took the whole surface off, laid down some clay on top of that, then put the surface back with a little extra, and then it changed immediately. So a good track man is worth his weight in gold.
Sure, I can
Even
imagine.
when I first came down in the standardbred world at the Meadowlands, that was like premier. And there's a guy named Bob Ashelman. Depending on weather, that's your problem with stone dust. If it rains, it gets too sloppy, and so they'll screen it down. They put water on screen and it'll tighten it right down. But as soon as it quit raining, he could give you 3/4 of an inch of cushion within 40 minutes, which that's lots nowadays in the standardbred world. But they're well, even if you look at standardbred racing through breeding, the new bikes and the tracks, the times have dropped so much. It seems like they're finally getting closer to the end of it. They're going miles in like 48 is pretty common anymore. Used to be when I started, it was a 2-minute mile.
Oh my
So
God.
that's how much faster it's gotten. And yeah, as you can see in the thoroughbred world, it really doesn't change that much. I wouldn't doubt it'll be picking up a little bit more now. I shouldn't even say that. And it's pretty. You don't see world records being broken that often in the thoroughbred game. But anyway,
So I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about nutrition. So what role does it play, in maintaining healthy hoofs for racehorses?
yeah, it's a lot of feeds are loaded with all kinds of minerals and whatnot, but usually there are various products that they'll give horses to just give the best hoof possible. But it's like usually when I explain it to owners, I said if you ever see, especially the women, I'll say if you've got real fine hair, there's no supplement you're going to take to give you a lot of body to your hair. Systemically, it just doesn't happen. You're kind of that's in your genetics, but certainly the supplements will give them as the best they can have. There's no doubt about that. But you're certainly not going to thicken walls and stuff like that. That just doesn't happen. It's interesting. You can tell because when I'll grind away the hoof, you can tell the texture of the foot. Some it'd be like almost comparing a good footed horse would be like hardwood to, a softwood. It's just, you can feel it with your grinder. And those horses are usually prone to quarter cracks. They just don't have the integrity to the wall. So.
Fair enough. So as a magazine, some of the biggest issues, are centered around the Saudi Cup, the Dubai World Cup. And I'm sure when
Yeah.
it comes to winning, like I said, health of hooves is very important, especially on the day of the event. So how do you handle performance and also, pressure demands when working with race horses in high-stake competitions?
Yeah, it really doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter. I look at problem hooves. I wouldn't treat a cheap horse any different than I would a good horse. I'm going to give him a foot that matches his body. Now, and it's a new world of horseshoeing now because with the adhesive, you can create a hoof wall. They have walls they're so thin walled, in the heel area, they'll roll under. Someone said once, he said, it almost looks like somebody let the air out of a tire. That's how it just kind of squats down and bulges. But what happens, that wall rolls over onto the sole, and then you put a shoe on top of that. And that's where the problems come in. That's back to the beginning. Most that I deal with is palmar heel pain, back third of the foot. And once they're sore in their feet, the secondary issues are coming quickly. They just don't address the ground the way that's comfortable. So a lot of them will start landing heavy toe and they get stabbing. So you'll jam the shoulders. They don't land level. So your ankles get involved, knees, it just goes on. And in the end, when they get sore up front, they got to use their hind end. Thoroughbreds, especially, they'll get underneath themselves to get the weight off the front end. Because you have a rider, so you got most of the weights up front, plus a rider on them. So they got to overuse their hind end trying to protect the front end. And as soon as you get their feet right, everything calms down. Then you got to probably heal up a few secondary issues. But I see all kinds of horses that somebody says his ankles are carrying pressure. And as soon as you glue shoes on, it just goes away.
So
It's
depending
going to
on,
be interesting. I'm meeting a guy
no, sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's going to be interesting. I'm meeting a guy today, first time. So I haven't seen these sensors. He worked with Olympic athletes in the human world, and
Oh,
they
wow.
put sensors in their shoes to see how they address the ground. And they're pretty confident we can put them on the horseshoes. So that will give you just tons of data. And you'll see once you get them sound how things, because it'll be on all 4 feet. So you'll see it'll measure the duration of flight, the hoof in the air, how that foot will land on the ground. Most of them will land lateral toe because they're trying to protect the medial heel. So it's going to be just fascinating for me. This is going to be
Interesting for sure.
this will be fun.
When technology get involved.
Well, you're going to have data to prove what I. Yeah, you'll have data to prove everything because they change. When we glue horses, you have a horse they'll say he's going a little crabby, just short. He won't reach out, and you'll glue shoes on, and within 2 days, the rider, the kid will come back ride him and say, "Wow, is he moving good?" They can just feel him striding out now. They're not just kind of they got to protect themselves. No different than we would.
How would you ensure, comfort and performance of racehorses through, proper hoof care, I guess?
Yeah, hoof care is boy, it's tough. Grooms, yeah, a solid groom is worth his weight in gold, just because he does what the daily maintenance. But some horses, they just got compromised feet. Unless traditional shoeing, there's no way you're going to be able to get it done. It was some of these feet, they're just so bad. I just did a horse we jumped on this call here. He had a size 5 on, and now because I can build the wall and the foot he needs, he went to a size 7. And he should be, he'll be one of them classic ones. In a couple of days, the rider will say, "Wow." I have them walk up. A lot of horses, when you pull the shoes, they just take a deep breath, big sigh.
Oh,
And they'll, you glue one on, they set it down, and they're funny animals. They're communicating to you all the time. They'll start licking their lips, and it's just so interesting watching them. And you can tell. I've had horses that they can't stand on the foot when you start, and as soon as you glue a shoe on, I can go to the other side, pick up the opposite foot, and they stand perfect. That's how quick it happens. It's no different taking a stone out of your shoe. The pain's gone, and that's what I say. They'll start licking their lips, but I have all kinds that you pull the shoes, and they just a big sigh come out of them, just because you got rid of them pressure points in the bottom of their feet.
really interesting. Have you ever been kicked?
Yeah.
And what do you do not to get kicked?
I've had some strike. I've never got kicked like you see some of that stuff on YouTube. That's like
Sure,
horrifying. But most of these horses, they're broke pretty well. Those guys going to farms and that, a lot of the owners don't even tell you. I mean, all my people say, "Watch him. He can be dirty." Usually they'll probably bite you before they kick you.
Okay.
But that's very rare, actually.
Wow,
I've never had any problem at all. I've been fortunate. Yeah.
excellent. That's very good to hear. And how would you build a
Yeah.
strong
Oh
relationship with
no,
the
they're
horses?
kind animals.
That's great. That's great.
They're
I,
very
I was
kind
not
animals,
expecting this
most
answer,
of
to
them.
be
Yeah.
honest. That's good for you. Yes.
Yeah.
How would you
Yeah.
build strong
It's
relationship?
changed a lot. Obviously, they had one of the best things that happened. They were, I don't know how far back it was. Had to be 10 years ago. But they used to use a lot of steroids, and the fillies were the worst by far. And once they can't you can't use steroids anymore on horses, and their temperament changed dramatically. They're just I have very you can have some that are kind of a little antsy or frightened, and those horses in these days you just use tranquilizer. It's gonna it's beneficial for the horse and certainly for the guy doing it. You can do a better job if you're not fighting with them, trying to get something done.
Well, that makes sense. How do you normally build a
Yeah.
strong relationship with the horses you work with? Like you said, I mean, you mentioned they're emotional and they lick their mouth and
Yeah. Well, I only see them once a month, so it's not like a groom would get a relationship quickly,
sure. Well, that's
because they're with them every day and they trust them. But I only see them every once a month, maybe 5 weeks. So I don't see them that much. I wouldn't doubt they remember, but I don't know for sure. I know one thing, they're a different animal the second time you work on them from the first, because the first time there's soreness involved. And the second time, they're usually totally different animal. I've had horses, they'll stand, it's 24/7. If you've got something nailed on your foot that's causing a problem, and they'll sit with their head in the back of the stall, just buried in the corner, and just pulling the shoes off to give them relief. And 2 days later, they'll come out, their head will be out the front of the stall, and they're looking around. And those horses, they realize this was a standard bred up at Saratoga. And the lady said, boy, now I got to watch her because she'll try and kick, because she knows when she pulls her out of the stall, there's going to be a harness going on. He's going to the track and it's going to hurt. And just a completely different animal now.
That's
But
amazing.
that's not uncommon. They're talking to you every moment you're around them. It's through actions. They can't speak, but everything they're doing, they're communicating with you.
Do you take any precautions, when working with high-strung racehorses? You mentioned you've never been beaten.
Yeah.
Or at least kicked.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they have fabulous tranquilizers now that last for 40 minutes.
Wow.
And then there's no issue at all. I don't take any chances at all. It'd be silly. Why would you?
True.
And I mean, like you say, you see stuff on YouTube. These guys they're game. Why would you jeopardize yourself like that? I just watched one yesterday, and that thing kicked him so fast, it was frightening. And nailed him right on his wrist. She cow kicked and just nailed him. And the girl standing there, the lead shank, like nothing even happened. It's amazing to watch it. It's called horsemanship.
Wow.
She knows how she is. Maybe he knew and he just got caught, but he's kind of coming up the way you would. You start from the front, you're going back, you want to touch them on up on their stifle and then get their foot. And he didn't even get close. And this thing cow kicked him. Wow. I felt it.
Well,
Oh
it
no,
seems at least
I
you're
wouldn't want
having
that.
fun
That's
on the
tough.
road watching those videos. That's good.
Yeah. No, just when they pop up, once you start watching horse stuff, that's the stuff. You know how it goes, the algorithm, and it popped up, and I said, it's one of them shorts. It wasn't long. It was only 20 seconds, but wow,
That's
it
great.
was tough.
So, farrier, trainer, veterinarian, those are all supposed to be a close team when it comes to the health of the racehorse. How important is teamwork, and the collaboration?
Oh, it's crucial. It's absolutely crucial. Especially an educated client that understands feet, and a vet, because people have different ideas about it. And once they see it, once they can look at most of those horses, you can watch them walking towards you, and as soon as you see a profile of the foot, you know whether you're going to be able to help them. And then when you pick the foot up, it just confirms it. And it's a lot of it's a subtle lameness. Like one of the top vets that I worked with, he was in the standardbred world and then moved into the show horse world and just dominated because he knew hind end lameness so well. And I'd asked him, I said, how much secondary lameness comes from just, tender front feet? He said, all secondary lameness. And that kind of, I didn't think it'd quite be that. And then I'll never forget, he got up off his chair. Then he walked over to the horse. He says, look, Ian, he picked up the foot and he says, it's right here. And this was probably before even glue-ons came around. It was just at the cusp of that. And he said, it's all back in the heels. And he says, no, like I said, he said, first thing will be his shoulders. They're going crabby and they're jamming. And he said, but ankles and knees will be right behind it. And I get all, like I was saying earlier, I got all kinds of horses. You put glue-ons on and all that swelling just calms right down.
Wow.
But if you got an educated trainer and the foremans too, you got assistant trainers. Some of these stables are so big, and they see it. They'll see the horse get better because they're listening to their riders. It's a massive team in a racing stable. And your vet is obviously very key.
Very important, I'm sure. So you mentioned technology. As you said, you're going to meet with someone for the first time, mostly for data. So how do you stay, current with advancement in hoof care and farriery techniques, especially with technology again these days?
It's interesting. Yeah. See, I came out of the standard world,
Mhm.
and all the kind of, because they have to deal with feet so much, you'll hear about it coming out of there long before it ends up anywhere else. And a lot of the stuff now that you'll see, they just have a different way of making it. But those types of pads, shoes have probably been tried before. It's just the degree of concussion they can absorb and stuff like that. But application is probably the biggest part of it, without a doubt. Because anybody can nail a shoe on, but if it's not fit right, and the problem that the traditional blacksmith faces is horses getting shoes off. And like we were saying earlier, a horse will get underneath himself if his feet are bothering him. It's a little bit of a vicious cycle, because they'll set them a little short and tight so the hind foot can't rip the shoe off. But that's what's causing, in the end, that's what's causing the problem. That's where your sole pressure comes from. So, it's that end of it is it's kind of tough for traditional shoeing. I'm glad I wouldn't want to have to just shoe a horse regular, a thoroughbred, day in, day out. To me, because I know what coming out of the standardbred world was solar abscesses. That's very common, and I just look at like I say, I see them all the time now over here in the thoroughbred world because the tracks got harder. But all the new products basically come out of the standardbred world. There isn't much new coming along lately that I've seen. They have a new edition of it, prettier because of 3D printing and stuff like that.
Ah, interesting.
But I heard the guy was telling me the other day, talking about, they want to take an outline of horse's foot and then use a laser cutter to cut out shoes. Sounds like a massive waste of metal, but and you have to have, for it to work correctly, you got to have a perfect footed horse. So it's not an issue. You can just take a shoe out of most shoes. So, they're obviously manufactured. They are pretty well shaped to sit on a horse's foot perfectly if you have a perfect footed horse. But when you got those collapsed heels, that's when you'll see in some of the pictures I sent your guys, you'll see how the heels are hooked way in and they're set way up underneath the foot. So,
This is more tricky.
I don't know if I answered your question, but
Well, actually, I have, in continuation to the question, what's your opinion when it comes to equine wearables, especially when it comes to gait analysis? Do you think it's important or do you think it's just gibberish?
well, that's it. Well, it's going to be because it's so new. I think the guy I'm talking to today is going to be, and I've talked to a couple trainers. They can't wait. They hope it works because it's a subtle soreness, and you don't know. You see a horse is a little funky behind, but with enough data, horses will probably move pretty well. They'll try and protect themselves in the same way to protect a certain something going on. So the more we get them on, I'm stoked about this. And with cameras and whatnot, you can put a GoPro on these things, and like especially this. We're going to start out in the standardbred world because your track is consistently hard. So we'll be able to film it very easily, put on these sensors, and then when we switch them into something to get them comfortable on their feet, it should register immediately. Like I say, within 2 days, it'll give you all kinds of data. I think it'll be huge in the future. It's just how well we can get them on shoes and how easy it is to apply. And I haven't seen any of this yet. They're telling me about it, but I'm very excited to see it. That's for sure.
Sounds exciting and promising. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I've heard guys talk about that. You're talking the one that goes on the saddle, that runs off the GPS. That gait analysis. I think it's Stride Right or Stride Safe or something like that. It's the one I heard about, and it'll show you which corner they're favoring, I guess, because of the way it measures within a 400th of an inch. So when they go where they're favoring, it'll point you to the corner for sure. But now with this thing, it'll tell you, because there's 4 sensors that'll go on the bottom of the foot. So you'll know if where he's landing, how that foot hits the ground every stride.
Oh
And
wow,
all 4 of them working together. So, oh no, it's going to be exciting, to say the least.
that's great. All right, on to the last question. Can you tell us a memorable experience you've had over the past, 40 years or so?
I had one last weekend. It was awesome. Some guy
Oh,
shipped a horse in about 4 hours, just cheap horse, cheap standard bred. Ships in 4 hours. He just sore. He's no good. We glued shoes on. And next start, he just went to the front, and never looked back. And just a cheap horse, but obviously we had White Abrario and the Classic, and I have been blessed with the horses I've got to work with.
oh, that's awesome.
And it's great being part of the team. That's for sure. That is for sure. I got to get to Saudi someday though, and Dubai, just to
Oh,
see that.
for sure.
Everybody that goes says it's unbelievable.
For
So
sure. Well, I'm actually
I'll
based
have
in
to make
Canada
the
at the
journey.
moment. So when you mentioned Canada,
Oh,
I'm
are
in
you?
Vancouver. Yeah, I'm actually in Vancouver at the moment. My team,
Vancouver?
my
Is
team
that
is
right?
in Saudi. But yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the racing's like out there, but I'm sure there's horses everywhere.
Well, that's true. Not as big as, Europe, Australia, or even the US, but
Yeah.
yes, a
Yeah,
fair
yeah.
amount.
Yeah, I kind of lucked out because I went to Detroit, and then my next stop was New York, because I was looking at, in Canada we had Toronto had back then Greenwood was still right downtown. Greenwood, Woodbine, and Mohawk and all that. But I ended up going to the States, and it couldn't have worked out any better.
Oh, I can imagine, for
So
sure.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for the interview. That was fantastic.
All right.
A lot of
Nice
very good
meeting you, and
answers.
great talking to you.
That was great meeting you as well.
Okay.
Yes. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.